everyone, welcome to my podcast. This is Ann P. of Fiber, Floss, and Fiction. Today is October the 13th, 2020. I hope everyone's doing great. I am coming to you from a slightly different location today. I had my screen and everything set up from teaching my class this weekend, and I thought I would just go ahead and record while I still kind of had it set up this way with an extra light and all that good stuff. So, things here are great. We're just trundling along. It's finally getting to be fall, which makes me so happy. I hope things are good wherever you are in the world. So today I'm going to talk about my usual knitting, books and reading, and then cross stitch. If you're a new viewer, welcome. I hope that you come back to visit me at some other point and enjoy what you see here today. And if you're a returning viewer, of course, welcome back. I always enjoy hearing from my subscribers and spending a little time answering comments and chit-chatting with you all. So without further ado, let's go ahead and we're going to jump right on into knitting. I thought I'd talk first about the finished socks that I have. If you watched my last video, you saw these mostly done, but they are officially done. This is Helen Stewart's Ambient Socks pattern. They are knit from the top down with a twisted rib cuff. This really pretty lace open work on the leg, and then kind of a textured stitch pattern for the back of the leg. It's just knit in pearls, but it's a little bit stretchy, so it kind of acts like a ribbing. It's really pretty nice. Yarn is YarnYarnCo's Fog. And then this is their sock base. And I did the contrast toes and heels with my Rhiannon sock from Woolly Wonka Fibers in the colorway Blackberries. So those are finished. And quite happy with how those turned out. I love the purple colors, so perfect for me. I also have a whole whack of hats to share with you guys. This first hat is a new pattern. It is currently free from Romy Hill, designs by Romy. And this is her Warm the Line hat, which she's doing as a free pattern for folks to either knit for themselves to wear when you're standing in line to vote, or knit and then donate. There's a link in her pattern. And I'll put all of the pattern links below for you guys to donate to keep someone warm while they're standing in line to vote this year, since voting is, as always, very important. This is the skein of DK weight yarn that I got from Hedgehog Fibers for their September club. It's the Moody Club, so it doesn't really have a name, but it is, it's maybe a little bluer on screen, but it's got dark gray, light gray, kind of a cranberry color, and then some little pops of brighter pink throughout. So I actually wasn't sure that I would like this crazy hand paint with this pattern, but I think it looks really fun. The pattern is just knits and pearls, so it's got some texture to it, but nothing crazy. I mean, this is something you could do if you have some basic knitting skills for sure. It's a slightly slouchy beanie. It's not hugely fitted, but it's also not super sloppy, which is just about perfect in my opinion. If you did one less repeat of the pattern, it really would be more like a beanie shape. So that is done. And I have two others. The first one of which is called the February hat, and this little guy I wanted to use up. I had one skein left over of this yarn in my stash, and this is a pattern by Kate Gagnon Osborn. It's also free. It's a great Gansey type pattern. It's got just knits and pearls, and then of course the ribbing down at the bottom. Worsted weight, so it knits up super quick. It's got this awesome like pinwheel crown shaping that I really like. I love the detail in it. There is an entire series of these hats out as free patterns on Ravelry. It's a whole year, so there's 12 of them. They were designed to be support for Keats Yarn Company, but they're free. So, you know, got worsted weight and a skein of it, you can knit the hat. Yarn is my last skein in this colorway of Harrisville's Highland, which is their worsted weight. The colorway is Jade. And I had like 20 yards left at the end of it, but all good. That was using up enough of it that I felt like I could toss those last 20 yards. So that one is finished. And then last but not least, this is a fun little color work hat. The designer is Rachel Coopey. She is Coop Knits on Ravelry and Instagram. And this is her Birstwith hat. I took some liberties with the pattern. I liked the pattern. I liked the kind of strong graphic design on it. But all of the pictures on Ravelry, it was huge, massive. Like it didn't even look like the ribbing fit. So I dropped down quite a bit. I took off, I think, almost 40 stitches from the overall circumference, and I still knit the size small, like 40 stitches off the size small circumference. And I worked the chart pattern as written, but I changed up kind of where I switched yarn. So for instance, in the original, this color would have been the orange that you see here. And I didn't really want that much orange in this because I'm not a huge fan. And then these triangles would have also been the same blue, and then the stripes would have been orange. So I just mixed it up a little bit because I thought I would like that better, which I did. I also did the crown decreases differently, or the stripes in the crown differently. Originally it called just for two colors, the orange and blue, and that seemed really, really dark since there's so much of this that's that kind of off-white color. So I added in alternating stripes of the colors and then left the neutral color in between. So several mods, but it did come out really nice. It's also kind of a slouchy beanie fit now as opposed to just hugely slouchy. So I liked that much better. And, you know, the pattern is, the motifs are pretty small, so you could just pick a multiple of that and have it work out. Yarn is Brooklyn Tweed's Peerie, which is their 100% merino fingering weight yarn. The colorways are Admiral, which is this dark navy blue, Mesa, which is the terracotta, and then Driftwood. And the Driftwood is the plain neutral color. And it's kind of a taupey gray, but it's super pale. I hadn't worked with this yarn before. And I have to say that I really, really liked it for the color work. I think it worked great and really shows off the pattern. My only complaint would be, even though they do have a lot of colors in it, they don't have a lot of like softer colors. I don't know if stuff was just maybe sold out or whatever when I went in to look to try it out, but I'm totally happy with how this came out. I'm just saying this is not my particular color palette, despite the fact that it kind of looks like that today. So another finished one. All of those will probably go into my giveaway box. I probably won't. I might keep this one just because I really like the yarn. But we'll see. All good. Let's see. Let's talk about what I'm actively working on right now. I have another pair of socks on the needles. I'm not even going to bother to show you guys the cover sheet because it's horribly grainy. Like you cannot really even see what the sock looks like. So I'll just show you what it looks like. These are the Samwise socks. They are from Claire Ellen's Lord of the Rings collection. She has two, and this is from the first that has the elves and hobbits in it. So it has twisted stitches on the front, and then it has this really, really deep kind of wood, knotty wood type cable on the back, and it goes all the way down to the heel, which I think looks amazing. I really like the look of it. They're kind of fussy to work, but that's okay. I mean, they're just more complex socks. So I have turned the heel and I'm going to work down the foot now. This is sock 1. The yarn is from super deep stash. Like I can't even remember how long ago I got it, but it's definitely been 10 years. It might be closer to 15. From the Woolen Rabbit, my friend Kim in New Hampshire. This is on her Harmony sock base like it used to be. This is not even the base that she dyes on currently. I mean, it's still sock weight and it's still the same blend, but it's a different base. It's multiplied in a different way. And the colorway is called Rosemary and Thyme. And you can see it's kind of an herby green with some flecks. It looks kind of brown, but it's actually a really dark burgundy. So very happy I had a reason to use this for those. They're going to be super soft and super squishy. So I'm working on those. I have just started trying to make some space on my desk here. I have just started a new project, which is a pair of mittens using this yarn that we got when we went to the Isle of Skye last year. Not totally sure how to say the shop name, but she is online and I'll link to her. I didn't see this yarn when I went to their yarn, like the yarn listings on their page, so I'm not sure if she carries it, but it's natural colored Hebridean wool. So it's from the Hebridean sheep that live on the Hebrides there in Scotland. And it's just a really dark brown with little tweedy bits to it. And so I have started mitten number 1. It's going to be very hard to see in this yarn, but it's got like a cabled ribbing, and then it's got a big staghorn cable there in the center. So, I mean, I haven't got much done on these. Just basically just started. It's sort of a wrist cuff at this point, but I think these will be a fairly quick knit because it's on worsted weight. So work on those as well. There's no rush on those, but I have a pair of fingering weight, like sock weight gloves that I knit for myself, and I wear them all the time, but they're not great to shovel snow in. So I thought something thicker and a little more rustic might be better, in the hopes that we will get snow to shovel this year here in New Mexico. We'll find out. Last but not least, I have a quick hand spinning project I wanted to show you guys. Now, I'm still working on the first bobbin of singles, which are sitting on my wheel, and that way I don't have them to show to you, but I will show you the roving. This is one of those braids of roving I have had in my stash and have been hoarding for a very long time. It's merino, cashmere, and silk. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's so soft. The colorway is Waits, W-A-I-T-S, named after the musician, from Funky Carolina. So no longer available, but I love the moody, broody, dark greens, kind of forest green and dark brown. Little tiny bits of later spots within it, kind of golds and fall colors like that. So I'm spinning this pretty fine. I want it to be a lightweight. I've only got 3 ounces of it, so I think that'll be plenty for a cowl. But I wanted something that I can wear and have it be squishy up next to my face. So we'll see what that is when I'm done with it. Not a specific deadline on it, but I would love to have it done by the end of the month if I can. So you may see that later on. Okay, that's it for knitting. Let's go on. We're going to move ahead and we're going to talk about reading and books next. I have 3 books to talk to you about this week. The first is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. My dad sent me this book. It is an interesting read, but not an easy one. The main premise is that there is this young woman who is at a house party in the 1930s and who appears to commit suicide. So it has, one of the reviews I read said it has aspects of both Clue and Groundhog Day. And that's probably a pretty good assessment of it. So there's this murder mystery happening in this British country house, and there's all of these suspects. The funky part about this book is that the main character who's trying to figure out to solve this murder mystery is basically reincarnated in one of 8 guests, and he has to play out the course of events during the day to try to figure out who kills this woman. And each of his hosts has varying degrees of issues. One of them, for instance, is this older gentleman who's very overweight and he can't really move around, and he's trying to be in certain places at certain times, but he can't go up and down stairs. And so he's very constricted in the amount of movement he can do. So he can't sort of just rush around and figure things out. He has to figure other ways out to get details. So it's a very interesting book, but I will say that I was confused through a lot of this book. It is not like I can read a chapter before I go to bed and it'll be relaxing. No, this is a book that you have to actually focus on, pay attention to, and kind of keep track of which body you're in while you're jumping backward and forward through time, because the same day happens, but it happens from a different perspective, and it doesn't always start in the morning. And they're kind of the rule of the game, if you will, is that if your character does not get through the whole day and fall asleep, or in some cases get killed, you jump back into that person if they haven't had kind of a full 24 hours. So he keeps jumping back into the body of the butler. So really cool premise, very interestingly written, but don't pick it up expecting it to be a light read. If you like murder mysteries, it's fun and it's definitely kind of something different. So that may be of interest to spark you to pick it up. As always, Goodreads links down below to all of the books I talk about. Okay, the next is called The Storyteller's Secret, and this is a historical fiction. It's set, part of the contemporary story is set here in the United States, but then moves to India, and then the historic portion of the story is set in India during, I think, the 30s. It's never specifically said, but Gandhi was still alive. The British occupation and over governance was still happening. And it's before the war, I believe. So we'll call it the 30s. Like I said, don't know exactly specifically when it's supposed to be occurring. So the main character is this very successful American woman whose parents were first generation immigrants from India. She's a journalist. She's happily married to this lawyer, but they have had multiple miscarriage losses while they've been trying for a baby. And she has not ever had a very good relationship with her mother. She's not even sure why, but her mother's been very distant to her whole life. So this chain of events gets kicked off because her mother's father, who's still in India, has passed away. And the family gets some legal papers, and her mother basically says, I want nothing to do with any of this. My family got rid of me. I don't want anything to do with it. And so the main character is kind of intrigued about the formative influences on her mother's life because her mother never talks about them. So she kind of gets the paperwork out of the trash, and she's already in this period in her life where she's kind of looking for a change or something different or something positive. So she goes to India, where she meets this elderly gentleman who was one of her grandfather and grandmother's servants, and he begins to tell her the tale of her grandmother. And she comes to find out that her grandmother was a writer and kind of a teller of tales, and who had a very progressive life for someone in her class in India. She just had a lot of experiences that were very different and caused some problems in the village in which they lived. And so she comes to learn about her grandmother and her grandfather, as well as, by extension. And this older servant kind of unfolds the tale for her over the course of the book. And during the course of the book, she also comes to realize that she maybe has given up on her marriage too soon, and that she maybe has even given up on her mother, having a good relationship with her mother, too soon. And so all of the growth that she does, kind of helped by this story of her grandmother, brings her back kind of full circle to also being a storyteller, because she begins a travel blog that talks about why she chose to go to India, the things that she's seen, the things that she's experienced, the things that she grows to really love about the culture, having grown up in America, and being separated from that part of her heritage, and being able to appreciate all of the things that she does have. So it was an enjoyable, fairly light book. I will say, if you find the topic of miscarriages a trigger, this is not a good book for you, because it is brought up quite a bit. And it also highlights some of the vast, not only class differences, but the difference between the freedoms that women and freedoms that men had in India in the early part of the 20th century, and how those were very different things that I think we take for granted in many instances here in the US. So it was really a good sort of cultural representation of kind of peeling back the layers and seeing where this, the main character's background and history, and how it influenced how her mother saw the world. Then finally, I'm going to talk about a book that I just finished up, which I got as an Audible book, called The Midnight Library. The author of this one, and the reason I picked it up, is Matt Haig, H-A-I-G. And you might recall that I read a book of his very, very early this year, which my dad had recommended, called How to Stop Time, I think is the title of it. If I can remember, I'll link to it below as well. But you can find both of them on Goodreads through his author page. So this one is The Midnight Library. And I listened to the Audible book version read by Carey Mulligan, the actress, and she did an excellent job. I loved her presentation of it. So if you have an Audible subscription or can find it at your library with her reading it, I would recommend it. I really enjoyed this book. This book was kind of a mix of philosophy and positive things in terms of having to go through negative to see the positive. The main character, Nora, is somebody who, she's in her mid-30s. She has kind of a sort of job and an sort of life. Her parents have died. She doesn't exactly get along with her brother. She just has this monster list of regrets, of things that she feels like she should have done differently, or she never even tried and wished she had. And she feels like all of those things have kind of forced her into the life she's in currently. And so she's already not in a good place, and her cat dies. And she decides that she's going to overdose on her psychiatric meds, on her situational depression meds. And she does. But she doesn't die. She goes to this in-between place called the Midnight Library. And on the shelves in the Midnight Library are books that encompass every possible life you could have. And so the librarian of the Midnight Library tells her that she can choose anyone, and hopefully will choose one that will fix one of the regrets that she's had about choices she's made in the past. And she gets to live that life. And she will stay in that life as long as she doesn't feel unsatisfied or unhappy in that current life. So when she finds the perfect life, she'll know because she gets to stay in it. So the first few that she picks wind up being things where she wished she had done things that would make her parents proud, or she wished she had done things that would have given her approval from her brother. And she goes through all of these different variations of her life as she doesn't even know it. And she winds up kind of coming to the end of all of these choices where her final version that she's in, she realizes this is a really, really good life. She's got a 4-year-old daughter. She's a professor at Cambridge. Her husband's successful. They have a very nice house. She has a good relationship with her brother. You know, things are good for Nora in this life, but she doesn't feel like it's her life because she doesn't feel like she's lived the experiences that made it happen. And so she chooses not to continue in that perfect life and to go back to the library. So there were many, many things about this book that I really enjoyed. I loved the fact that there was a lot of philosophy thrown in. I loved the fact that the author was fairly creative about going through all of these different kind of what ifs. You know, we all have them. What if I had married that person? Or what if I had gone for an advanced degree? Or what if I had, you know, pursued something I loved to do as a kid, but didn't? And I felt like it was a very positive and affirming kind of book. Obviously, there is discussion of suicide in it, so that is what kicks off the main plot. And if that is a trigger for you, then this is not a good book because it does come up. But I do think that if you're somebody who has regrets about things, you know, Nora picks lives that she thinks are going to be so much better because she has a regret about X. And sometimes things don't always turn out great, even though you've picked something you thought was a better choice. And since we all make choices every day, and those choices affect what happens to us in an hour or 8 hours or 8 days or 8 months or 8 years, you know, it is hard as a human, I think, not to try to make sense of some of that. And so this book tries to do some of that, but in the end, ultimately, there maybe isn't really an answer. And you have to just make the best of the things that you have decided to do with your life. So I would recommend this book. I really enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed the Audible version of it, and it is being optioned for a movie, which will be interesting to see how they do if it comes to be made. But yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I'm currently working on a sort of steampunk, young adult-ish type book, so I'll report back on that next time. In the meantime, let's move on, and we're going to talk cross stitch. All right, so cross stitch. What have I been working on? Really just 3 things since we last talked, because I'm kind of trying to stay focused on meeting my 20 in 20 goals. And I have 1 project left to get there. So let's start first with number 19 of 20. This is not a full finish because I haven't finished the entire project, but it is a finish of the things that I wanted to get done this year. And I have it off of my scroll frame so that I can hopefully show you all that whole thing. This is my Desert Mandala by Chatelaine. And so I have completed this top, a little more than a quarter, but it's this whole top section with the snake and the rabbit. And if I can back up enough, yeah, there's the whole shebang currently. So the spots that you see in the border just above that center cactus medallion that are square, they're really big crystals. And I'm opting to put those in at the end because I don't want to crunch them when I roll the scroll frame up. But I am putting the smaller beads in, and I was going to see if I can get this in where you guys could see. The snake has a ton of beads. I hope you can see the shimmer in that. There's also Krynek here. I've done all the beads here in the border. And on this side, let's see if I can get in close enough to show you the bunny. And that pretty moth or butterfly. So this will come back out again next year. I have no plans to work on it anymore this year. And I will probably then work on this section here. I want to complete the two, there's two little motif things over here, and then the two vignettes, and bring down this border. So essentially get the second third done, or a little bit more than a third, and then I'll just have the bottom piece to do for maybe the next year. Loved working on this, as I do whenever I get it out. The fabric is a 28 count even weave called Calypso from Picture This Plus. So that was number 19 of 20 for my yearly goals. Sorry about that. I just didn't have enough space to hold all the big things up. Number 20 of 20 is Joan Elliott's Winter Fairy. And I hope y'all aren't bored of seeing this because I'm going to be focusing on it quite a bit in the next month, 2.5 months. So I have the kind of off-white and white and gray sections to stitch down here. The bunnies are done but not backstitched. So I have, there's a like little snowdrift that comes in here, and there's maybe snow down to there that I have to complete. Her skirt is all done for the regular cross stitches. So I have like this much left of regular cross stitching to do. And I worked on this, I think 4 days, maybe 5. Life has been getting in the way of a lot of crafting time. But at any rate, my goal for October is to try to get the cross stitching done. And then I can come back and you'll see the, here we go. These spots right here in her purple dress need to be beaded. There's beads all up in here. They're kind of like a loopy bit. You'll see I've started the Krynek, like the brocade for her skirt. These gold snowflakes. I'm not sure what they are. And I've done a little bit down here, but I'm missing like one here, and then all of the ones through here. So there is still a fair amount to go, even though she looks like she's moving along. She is moving along. I just want to make sure that I get her done and hit that last goal. I'm using the called for DMC, Krynek. I didn't get Mill Hill beads. I just am going to be using some that I have in stash. Oh, and I also have some back stitching left to do. Like I have this done, but there's back stitching all along the border there. And then there's more back stitching that looks like this furry bits down here in this part of her dress. The fabric is a 28 count even weave from Color and Cotton. It's her July 2017 club fabric. It is unnamed. So it's kind of a mottled blue with a little bit of gray, which I think works great for her. I've been really happy working on this. I think she's coming along really nicely. I'll be excited to get these little bunnies backstitched. There's also over here, there's like a little swan or some other chick that's kind of white. But this will be out after I finish another goal for this. This probably will happen this week, and then I'm going to focus on this for the remainder of the month, mostly. And then my other piece that I have been working on this month is Once Upon a Fairy Tale, supersized max color. And I have just finished this page with the horse and the griffin and the sword, the headless lady on it. Stitching this on 25 count pre-gridded fabric. Let's see, what can I tell you about this? So I have about 500 stitches left to do on this for my 1,000 stitch goal for this month. I think I'm going to come this way next. So when I started this project, I did something different for me, which is I started this in the center low. This is the bottom center mark. And the page break was like right here. And I didn't want to do half the book. I wanted to do all the book. So I opted to start this where I kind of did like half a page and half a page to make up a page. And the other thing about this that's a little bit odd is that there's like 2.5 rows below the normal page. And then I'm not even sure why I did this, except I think I was trying for like a solid 8,000 stitch block. I actually pulled up into the page above. So right now this, I mean, yes, this is the equivalent of a page and it's square and or rectangular and it looks like a page, but it's not actually a page. So what I'm thinking I might do is come across this way and just come to where the page ends, which is slightly smaller. I think it's out here. Since I've kind of finished this page up and moving this way, and try to get to what is actually a page break on the pattern, and then from there kind of even it out on both sides and then continue working. This pattern is an Amy Stuart design. It is charted by Heaven and Earth Designs, and it was one of the ones that was affected by that weird 08-09 DMC floss color thing, if you've been following the full coverage discussions on that. So I didn't want to switch to the new chart, the replacement chart, until I had gotten to this part of a page, you know, like I could have a strong break, because I was going to have to transfer all of the finished part over to the replacement chart. So I did that this morning before I continued on working on my stitches to actually put more new stitches in. I'm not sure that I'm going to see a huge difference. These two pages do have 09 in them. You could not, I'm sure, tell where that is, but they do. And it looked to me like it's totally fine and completely appropriate, and there's nothing wrong with how that looks. So I don't know that I'm going to necessarily gain very much, but I am going to go ahead and use the replacement chart because I assume that it will at least be a slight improvement. This project also is one that I had pegged for my stitch 20,000 stitches on in 2020 through the Full Coverage Fanatics group. And I have 4,000 stitches, just under 4,000 stitches left to do on this. So this one may come out again more frequently if I can get Winter Fairy finished, because I would love to be able to meet this goal. It was kind of a stretch goal for me, and I thought I probably won't get there. But I was talking to Kim over at Spartan Stitcher, and she and Jemima at the Rocking Stitcher have been kind of cheering me on to get that row finish on my stitching shelf project, which sounds so good. But that was never a goal this year, and this at least was a goal, even though I didn't really think I was going to get that far. So I'm going to try to get this done if I can once Winter Fairy is done. So by the time I get done another 500 stitches into this, I'll have 35 stitches left. Let's add a couple zeros. 3,500 stitches left to work on getting to that 20 and 20 goal on this particular piece, which would be great if I could do. I know a number of folks in the Full Coverage Fanatics group have already reached that point, and some of you have done it twice. That is not me, but kudos if you have done that. So that will potentially be something that I'm working on in November and December. We'll see how far I get. Now, having said all of that, if I can get all of the plain cross stitches done on a winter fairy before the end of the month, and obviously get the 500 stitches on Once Upon a Fairy Tale done, I have penciled in a new start on Companions, which is an Adele Sessler. It's not technically full coverage, but it's from Heaven and Earth Designs. It's got missing parts up in one corner, but it's the elf and his horse companion. So, and I'll put a link to all of the Heaven and Earth Designs and Joan Elliott and Chatelaine. I'll put all the links down below in the description box. So, I had that penciled in to start. If I can do that, I would love to. I've got my fabric ready. I've pre-gridded the left upper corner, which is where I normally like to start. So I can start anytime. I've got all the supplies. I've got the floss. I've got it gridded. I'm ready to go. It'll be a time issue. So let's see how we go. Like I said, I'm going to keep working on Fairy Tale this week and then jump on over to Winter Fairy when I get done that. Try to get my stitches in to meet kind of my small goal for this month. So I know I just have beading and back stitching and that little bit of Krynic left to do in the next 2 months. So I think that's going to be it for that segment. Hopefully this won't be too bad. Maybe 45 minutes-ish, a little less. But thank you all for watching. I always appreciate your comments, thumbs up, your kind support, all of those good things. I hope that you are doing well in whatever part of the world you're living in. I know our COVID cases have been increasing here. Again, we actually were at our highest daily infection rate this past week, I think on Thursday. So we'll see. I don't know if stuff's going to get shut down again or not, but fingers crossed. My husband actually had to travel for business this week, which is all making us a little bit nervous. I mean, he's very good about hand washing, masks, hand sanitizer, all that good stuff. But he's actually going to stay out in our camper for a week when he gets home just to make sure he doesn't have any symptoms because he's afraid of bringing them in the house to me, which I appreciate. But it will be very weird having him living in the backyard, like sliding his coffee out through the back door onto the porch in the mornings. I don't know. We'll see. It's such a strange world that we live in these days. So enough rambling on that note. I will talk to you guys probably before the end of the month, but we'll see how that goes. If not, it'll certainly be the beginning, that very first couple of days of November. So until then, take care, stay well, wash your hands, wear your mask, all that good stuff. Be kind. Bye for now.